What do you say to the people, especially maybe in our community, that's just giving up on the political process? They feel marginalized from it. They feel like, they don't understand it's billions of dollars that go to other countries, and you can't forgive student loans. And there's a sentiment that Republicans don't care about us. The Democrats don't really care about us either. Like, so why even take part in the political process, or why even, have any trust in a politician at all, right? And they kind of checked out of the political system altogether. What do you say to that group of people?
Well, I think, listen, at the end of the day, uh, the system that we have in place is one that if you're not at the table, you're likely going to be on the menu. And so you better be at the table to try to make sure that there can be a more equitable distribution of resources. It doesn't mean that it happens automatically. It's a fight, and it's a fight that we have to continue to wage and make sure that we are delivering meaningful change to people in the community, particularly communities that have long been under resourced and has been an absence of the type of attention that people might otherwise deserve. That's not to say that there hasn't been real progress, and there has been in the previous administration historic investment in Black colleges and universities, historic investment in African American farmers, historic investment when it comes to moving the needle as it relates to African American home ownership. Small business entrepreneurship was up significantly in the last few years under the previous administration. There was, tangible signs of progress, and of course, millions of people had their loans actually forgiven, and the Trump administration is now reversing that effort. But a lot of people actually who were tens of thousands of dollars in debt, but may have pursued a career in public service, have had that debt eliminated under the previous administration. So those are tangible indications of real progress. But of course, that's not to say that there isn't a lot of work that needs to be done, a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done to create an economy that's more affordable, that people can, have a comfortable life, provide for themselves, provide for their families, educate their children, purchase a home, have access to health care, and then, of course, one day be able to retire with grace and dignity. We have to get far more people in this country, in the communities that I represent and beyond, access to that great American dream. But at the end of the day, politics, if you were to break it down, is about the management of public money. Our money, taxpayer dollars. Politics is about the management of public money. And the question is, you're going to try to participate in that management to make sure that your taxpayer dollars are equitably and effectively and efficiently distributed, or you're going to walk away from that management and allow for people who may not have the best interests of your community at heart to play a more dominant role. And I think clearly being engaged is more important than being disengaged.
Speaker Jeffries, in terms of all the rhetoric, all the divisiveness, I wonder at this stage, what does bipartisanship look like from your lens when it seems like there's an aggressive party and then there's a party that's not as aggressive? What does that look like when we can't agree on pretty much anything? What do you say to the public? What do you say to people who are watching this and saying if they can, it's never going to work because we'll never agree?
Well, I think definitely Trump by nature comes across as hyper aggressive. He tries to bully people. And we saw over the first few weeks, first few months, that he was trying to steamroll his agenda and just jam this extreme agenda down the throats of the American people. I think you have seen aggressive pushback, from Democrats. We don't have the Oval Office. We don't have the bully pulpit. But in terms of the totality of the effort, he still hasn't been able to pass a single bill through Congress, a single bill through Congress designed to implement his Project 2025 agenda, because he's faced strong Democratic opposition in the House and similar opposition in the Senate. And that will continue, principled opposition. But at the same period of time, I think we all have an obligation to try to find common ground to deliver solutions that make life better for the American people. And from the beginning of this Congress, I made clear that if my colleagues on the other side of the aisle were willing to work on issues like creating an affordable economy, lowering housing costs, lowering grocery costs, lowering childcare costs, lowering utility costs, or lowering insurance costs, the things that are plaguing everyday Americans, then that's something that we should all be able to get behind. But unfortunately, our Republican colleagues haven't done a single thing, passed a single bill, put forth a single meaningful idea, or Trump hasn't signed a single executive order that actually is designed to address the promises that he made to lower the high cost of living in the United States of America. That's a problem. In fact, we know that Trump promised to lower costs on day one. And a lot of people bought into that. A lot of people believed it. But costs haven't gone down on day one. They're going up. The economy is not getting better. It's more fragile. The bond market is shaky. The stock market has been up and down. Inflation is going up. Our credit rating has been downgraded. And Republicans are actually crashing the economy in real time. And they may drive us toward a recession. At the same time, having done nothing to put everyday Americans into a situation where there's an economy that works for them. And so our view, our promise as Democrats, that we'll work with anyone to try to make life better for the American people. But they've got to be willing to participate on the other side, and they're not. Because at the moment, they're just trying to jam their extreme ideology down the throats of the American people. That's not what folks signed up for, those who may have voted for this guy. He overpromised on the economy. Now he's under-delivering. And I think in our system, the American people are going to have to hold them accountable for their failures. And we have to give the American people a reason, not simply to run away from Donald Trump, because there are a lot of reasons now to do that, but to run toward us related to our commitment to improve their quality of life and make sure they can achieve the American dream.
In light of that, given the formation of BRICS, Tesla losing its dominance in EV, why do you think Democrats and Republicans cannot get along to make sure that the country is actually strong? And I feel like a lot of infighting is done, which is taken away from the focus on the enemy threats that we do have. Do you think we'll ever have any bipartisan partnership for a long period of time? Or do you think that things are just too polarized now to ever come to like a common ground while we're being attacked on all fronts?
Yeah, the American people want us to find common ground whenever and wherever possible. And during the start of this new Congress, that was my personal commitment to the American people. That's what we articulated at the very beginning. And we made clear that we'll work with anyone, in order to make life better for the American people. But as you pointed out, we're in a very polarized moment right now. That has been the case for the last 10 years or so. And it's a very difficult environment for people to operate in. And now you have the additional threat of political violence, right? And people shouldn't have to be concerned that they'll be shot dead simply for doing their jobs and trying to serve the people that they represent to the best of their abilities. But this is the moment that we're in. We can't accept it. We have to work hard to emerge from it. And so my view is we all should be working to bring people together, not tear the country apart. And as you pointed out, we've got external enemies who want to crush us, including but not limited to China in different ways, certainly economically, or Russia, right, who's an enemy of the United States of America. But not all my colleagues on the other side of the aisle seem to want to recognize that. And so none of this internal division is helpful. Abraham Lincoln was very clear in the 1860s, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And it's going to take people on both sides of the aisle who are willing to commit to finding a better path, not turning back the clock, moving the country forward, not tearing us apart, but bringing us together and trying to find the values that unite us. And everybody, I think, just wants to provide a comfortable living for themselves and for their families, and to be able to experience the benefits of the American dream in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, where we know far too many people are excluded from that.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully we can set ourselves on a path where we can bring the country together around the common goals and aspirations that people have, whether you're a Democrat, an independent, or a Republican.
Well, I want to thank you for your time. But before you leave, my last question is, since you brought up China, as I said, I'm actually in China right now.
Yeah.
And I've been taking tours of manufacturing plants, and it's actually pretty insightful and enlightening. And I gained a lot of insight from my time here. Tariffs, we've talked about tariffs a lot on this show. You, right? If you were president, right, and your party, what is your stance on what makes sense as far as working out a fair trade deal, and what makes sense as far as the relationship with United States and China? Because China's not going anywhere. They're only getting more powerful.
Yep.
So diplomacy wise, what do you think makes sense?
From the standpoint of our relationship with China, we're in a strategic competition with them, and we need to win that competition. But we shouldn't intentionally seek conflict. And for all the reasons that you've articulated and are experiencing on the ground, it is a challenging relationship. I think the problem with the Trump tariffs is that they've been all over the place, and they're not strategically being deployed. And it's being unleashed on the American people in a way that are going to cause thousands of dollars in additional expense for everyday Americans per year. And that's the exact opposite of what he promised to do. I also think that launching a trade war against our allies in North America, for instance, Mexico or Canada, made no sense. When there was an existing agreement, the US-Mexico-Canada trade agreement that Trump himself negotiated.
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually done in a bipartisan way in 2019, I believe, that is not up for renewal until about a year or two. And so it's the erratic nature of the manner in which the tariffs have been unleashed on the American people. And he announces them, and then he pulls back, and then he announces them, and then he pulls back. It actually creates a climate where it's hard for businesses to have any certainty around the rules of engagement. And so economic investment gets frozen, hiring gets frozen, and consumers lose. It's the worst of all possibilities. And hopefully we're going to see this administration change course. But our view is that the best thing that one can do for the economy is for there to be stability, involving all stakeholders, and figuring out the areas of strategic competition where we have to win, have to bring jobs back, have to nearshore or reshore, and the areas where that may be impractical, and strategically negotiating a better landscape with China is the right thing to do.
I agree, Speaker Jeffries. My last thought is this. I agree with you. I think this is a competition, and when you speak of competition, we're referring to AI, that we have to win. But I also believe that we, as our community, have to be able to participate in. So I wonder what your thoughts on how do we make sure that our community is participating in that kid in Brooklyn, that young student who, you sat in that seat in your life, who ChatGPT has been banned in his school and TikTok is fighting for his attention. How do we encourage and how do we make sure that we're participating in the conversation when it comes to AI?
Yeah, it's a great question because, we are in the middle of another economic revolution. We were an agrarian society, and then we went from an agrarian society largely to industrialization, and then industrialization towards sort of an innovation-based economy where you also had a lot of service job opportunities that replaced many of the manufacturing jobs, but weren't as economically robust in terms of a pathway into the middle class. And that has been problematic for people in our community and across the country, including in rural America, small town America, the heartland of America. But now, at a rapid pace, we're moving from that innovation-based economy into the next generation of it, which is artificial intelligence. And there is a real risk that under-resourced communities in the inner city, in rural America, in small town America could be left behind. And so we have an AI task force that we actually formed in the House, and it was bipartisan. I think 11 or 12 Democrats, 11 or 12 Republicans. It's led by Congressman Ted Lieu on our side. And we recently met on the Democratic side to say, we need to be prepared to engage legislatively on AI so that there are guardrails that are put in place that can ensure no one is left behind. And at the same time that we win the competition, we're ahead, but China's been closing the gap. And we're not going to be in a situation where we can win the competition with China if we allow them to overwhelm us in the context of artificial intelligence, and then ultimately the next generation of innovation, which is quantum computing. And so it's an exciting time for innovation in the country, but also a very challenging time. And this is also why staying in the game, getting involved, at the local level, at the state level, certainly at the federal level, so that people express their ideas and perspectives and are at the table so that our community doesn't remain simply on the menu.
My final question for you. What do you think the Democratic Party needs to do to be back in fashion or get some of its power back? And given the investment that Peter Thiel has had into JD Vance and the political party, what opposition financially needs to be given to fight the MAGA regime that has come in? Like who are the big donors that can offset the Elon Musk's, Peter Thiel's of the world to help get the Democratic Party back in fashion?
Well, grassroots participation, I think, is going to be critical. And we saw that recently. The biggest race so far of this off year was the Wisconsin State Supreme Court race in April. And Wisconsin is a state that Donald Trump had just won. It's a swing state. Sometimes Democrats win, sometimes Republicans win. And there was an open seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court that would determine which side controlled the majority of the Wisconsin Supreme Court, impacting the lives of the people who live in that great state. But also, it was such a critical bellwether race that you saw intense engagement from people who are left of center and people who are right of center, including Elon Musk, who, again, spent in that race $25 million. No one had even come close to that amount on his own to try to win that Wisconsin State Supreme Court race. And we made clear as Democrats that the choice belonged to the people of Wisconsin. Is it your seat or is it Elon Musk's seat? And when presented with that question, grassroots energy and activism rose up, both in terms of on the ground work and grassroots contributions, such that we won that race, and we won it by 11 points. Now, that is a landslide under any circumstances. It certainly is a landslide in a 50-50 state like Wisconsin. And so it provided, I think, for us a test case that when the people are awakened to the fact that there are big donors across this country who want to jam their ideology down the throats of the American people in ways that aren't often good for the quality of life of the American people, that they still have a voice in our democracy. They can still express themselves. This is still a country anchored in self-government, and our democracy should not be for sale. And I think moving forward, you're likely to see that type of reaction to the extremism that's coming from the White House, Trump and his allies, as we move forward. We have a race in Virginia for the governorship and a race in New Jersey for the governorship. It's going to be important for us as Democrats on our pathway back to power to win both of those races. And I think we're on track to do that. And then, of course, in the midterm elections, we'll have a chance to make our case to the American people that you've got two options here. You can either keep House Republicans in the majority, and if that were to continue, then it's simply going to be a rubber stamp for Donald Trump's extreme agenda. There will be no debate. There will be no effort to find common ground. There will be no effort to solve the problems that you as everyday Americans have. Or you can have a check and balance to the worst impulses of Donald Trump and far-right extremists and put Democrats back into power in the House so that we can hopefully get back to solving problems for the American people and not be in this, constant state of chaos, cruelty, and corruption, which has been the case for the Trump administration so far.
Thank you for your time.
And I appreciate you.
And
Appreciate
yes,
you.
Thank you all. Look forward to staying in touch and appreciate again all that y'all do.
Of course. Thank you so
Appreciate you.
much.
no problem.